Y'all, I have a confession to make. After the release of patch 7.2, your boy got addicted to playing Final Fantasy XIV again. And to make things a little more exciting this time around, I decided to learn a new tank called Warrior. However, the early game is kind of boring because all you can really do is press 1, 2, and 3 over and over again. So I decided to spice things up and build a giant battle axe controller to play Warrior with. You have to literally swing this axe around to activate abilities. Also, if it's 3 in the morning and you have neighbors, make sure to yell as loud as you can into the controller, because battle cries activate abilities as well. In 3, 2, 1. Now you're probably asking, Lewis, why do you keep doing this to yourself? So first off, I technically have a goal to become a real-life Warrior of Light. What I mean by that is I want to learn every job in the game in real life. And the easiest way for me to do that is to make controllers that almost mimic the job that I play it with. And when I say technically, I mean it's been almost 6 months since I played Pictomancer with a literal paintbrush. I think I cooked a little too hard with this one by having to actually paint my abilities out to play, almost to the point where I couldn't come up with any more ideas for Final Fantasy XIV. Secondly, this battle axe controller started off as a challenge someone wanted me to do. The challenge was that I would play the game normally, but whenever I had to press Fell Cleave, I would have to pull out a comically large axe and swing it at the camera to activate the ability. Which, as funny as that would be, I feel like making an entire controller out of that gimmick would be more fun for me. So to knock out 2 Moogles with 1 Tombstone, I decided to make a battle axe controller for Final Fantasy XIV. But in order for me to do that, we first need to come up with some goals for our project to beat. We first need to build the axe part of the axe controller. Up next, we need to make this controller work with Final Fantasy XIV. And last but not least, my controller needs to be good enough so party members don't know that I'm using gimmick controls. So as an amateur engineer, I think we should first start off with building the battle axe. And y'all, I am definitely an amateur engineer because I need to apologize in advance for what you're about to see. In Final Fantasy XIV, the warrior class uses battle axes to battle. So I found a pretty cool 3D printable battle axe on Dangerous Lady's website. I actually only want the head of the battle axe from this file. That's because I'm building my own custom handle for the project. The idea of the custom handle is to make room for all the buttons and joysticks I'm going to add to it. While working on the custom handle, I tried to follow the original shape of the weapon. But during testing, we kind of ran into a major issue. The original's handle is very triangular, if that makes any sense. And for those who don't know, triangles aren't very fun to hold. So I booted up my CAD program to build a new handle that was way less pointy. First, I traced the battle axe's neck to see what we were working with. Then I just slapped on a long ass cylinder on top of my trace. I've also added some slots onto the handle so it can house the buttons and joysticks. In the middle of the handle, there's space for the microcontroller and all of the wires I need for the project. If this seems really similar to my last video about building a functional Buster Sword controller, it kind of is. Once I was done designing the handle, I sent the files to my 3D printer to print them out. It took a couple of days of printing, but the parts turned out pretty okay. This is what the battle axe controller looked like at the beginning of the project, and this is what it looks like now after going through a weekend of sanding and painting. Overall, I think I did a pretty good job making this axe. At least it's good enough for my old camera not to pick up all of the little mistakes I made on the build. So with that done, I can confidently say that we have completed goal number 1 of this project. With the battle axe built, we can now talk about the hardware we're going to use for this controller. Today we'll be using the old reliable microcontroller with a built-in gyroscope and accelerometer. Along with that, we also have 4 push buttons and 2 PSP joysticks. The accelerometer and gyroscope on board will handle capturing the motion controls of the build. Long story short, whenever I start flailing around with the battle axe, the microcontroller will pick it up. Now the new gimmick we're going to add to this controller is this really tiny microphone. This little duder isn't good enough to be used for voice chats or recording audio in general, but it can pick up how loud the sounds are in my room. So in theory, if you yell just loud enough, it'll send a signal to my microcontroller to activate a button in game. And when I say yell, I mean you have to yell in order for this microphone to pick you up. Ah. 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 With the hardware ready to go, it was time to put it into the battle axe's handle. This was really simple to do as I planned ahead of time and made small tunnels in the handle for the wires to go through. In the middle of the axe is a box that will house the microcontroller and the microphone. All of the wiring converges at this point, so I needed a bit more space to fit it all in the controller. Also, now I don't have to worry about how I should hold my axe because the microphone will always be close to my face. Now that this controller is technically done, it's finally time to make it work with Final Fantasy XIV. And when I mean make it work with Final Fantasy XIV, what I really meant to say is make my neighbors mad at me for screaming over and over again at 1 in the morning. So the cool thing about this battle axe controller is that you can do your rotations without pressing a single button. And this is where we get to add motion controls to the build. To do that, we first need to read the data from the accelerometer whenever I swing the axe around. As you can tell, the harder I swing the axe, the higher a specific line gets on the graph. Using that data, I can tell the axe to press a corresponding button whenever that line spikes up. For example, this is what a simple rotation looks like with the battle axe controller. Here goes the first rotation test in 3, 2, 1. A. Easy peasy. One cool trick that I have programmed onto the axe is that it will remember what ability you're on during your rotation. So your first swing will always start with the ability Heavy Swing. And even if you wait some time before you swing again, the controller will always remember what you used last in the rotation. Now if you want to switch over to an AoE rotation or just another set of abilities, all you have to do is hold the alternate button at the top of the axe's handle. Holding that button down will let you use abilities on the other half of the cross hotbar. If you want to switch between your hotbars, just press the button right below it. The bottom 2 buttons on the handle will deal with confirming and switching between which enemy you'll be attacking. This setup will make more sense when you're holding the battle axe yourself. There are also 2 joysticks that deal with the in-game movement and camera controls. The movement code could use a bit of an update because right now you can only move in 4 directions. But you know, if it's good enough for the playtest, it's good enough for me, so I won't say anything if you don't. Now that we got the basics down, it's time to go over my favorite part of the build, the battle cry gimmick. Okay, so the meme of the warrior job is that you want to use an ability called Fell Cleave over and over again. That's because this ability does damage. However, this ability is locked behind a beast gauge where you need enough wrath points in order to use it. In order to build wrath, you need to use abilities that make your character look like they're screaming into the void. So when you scream or yell in real life, the controller will detect that and press a corresponding ability. Once your battle cry is detected, Fell Cleave should be ready to go and you'll be ready to be a real life warrior light. Here's what it looks like in practice, or I guess here's what it sounds like in practice. It's a Fell Cleave? It's a Fell Cleave? Dog, if you're one of my neighbors watching this, I am so sorry. I have a compressor running on stream, so chat couldn't hear how loud I was screaming. But my OBS was saying that the microphone from across the room was peaking, so I don't even want to know what my neighbors were hearing. Either way, all of the noise complaints were worth it, as now that the battle cries are ready to go, I can say that we have completed goal number 2. The battle axe controller works with Final Fantasy XIV, and if there are any issues, my keyboard is just an arm's length away. There are some bugs I need to iron out, but overall it holds up just fine. Now the last goal of this build was to see if it was good enough for other players not to realize I'm using a battle axe controller. In order for us to do that, we need to not die too often or mess up too many mechanics in our Duty Finder sessions. So on stream we did some dungeons and trials with chat along with randos online. I didn't expect to have any issues because Final Fantasy XIV is a relatively simple game. Even if I died during a trial, I don't think anyone would actually care. Overall, swinging the battle axe around and yelling to do abilities was really fun to do. However, I didn't realize how sweaty I would be after doing a session of Duty Finder on stream. This build doesn't weigh as much as my other builds, but having to constantly swing a chunk of plastic around to fight bosses can work out your arm. Now, could I have been more optimal with my damage and positioning? Sure. But remember, I'm swinging a battle axe around like an idiot yelling, "Ah," to do more damage. I got more things to worry about than being on top of a DPS Excel sheet during a Duty Fighter session. So with that done, I can confidently say that this Battle Axe controller project is completed. Now honestly, I could try out some Savage or even Ultimate tier content with this controller, but please, don't give me any ideas. I used to be a Souls challenge runner and I've been fiending for some hard challenge runs lately. So if y'all really want me to do harder content with my controllers, please let me know in the comments below. But with this project done, it's finally time to give our controller a quick review. Okay, so this is the part of the video where we talk about how much it costs to build a controller. However, it's time for a serious talk about the future of this channel. And before I get too far into this, no, I'm not going to stop making videos or stop making controllers in general. I love how stupid my ideas are and it's so cool to bring them to life. However, if y'all live in the States like I do, you already know what's going on. When I showcased this build off on Twitter to almost 600,000 views, I had so many people ask me where they could buy it or at least find out how much it costs to make. And the good news is that this is one of the cheapest builds I've ever made. This controller was barely 60 bucks, and that's mostly because I switched over the cheaper parts. And the best part about this is I didn't sacrifice anything in quality. The controller performed just as good as any of my older builds, if not better. Overall, I give the Battle Axe controller an 8 out of 10, would scream again. Unfortunately, I built this controller right before the Orange Puff played Mario Party minigames with our tariffs. Right now, the price of this build is so much higher, it's to the point where I would have skipped making this video entirely. Also, if we're being honest, I'm kind of scared that I won't be able to afford the Monster Hunter controller that y'all wanted me to make. For those who don't know, I only have around 22k subscribers and I don't have any sponsors. I fund the projects myself because it's a very fun hobby and it seems like y'all enjoy the videos too. But I don't make enough on my own to match how expensive these newer builds are gonna cost. So I just wanted to let y'all know in advance, if you start seeing challenge run videos on my YouTube channel, it's because I need to find a way to fund our future projects without changing the channel too much. I could start a Patreon or start streaming like y'all suggested in the past, but I need to plan that out. However, if you want to help me out now for free, consider subscribing to my channel if you think I've earned it. It goes a very long way into helping me convince a company to sponsor me, so thank you if you do. But if that means I have to be eldering with a bunch of bananas to fund the next project, I gotta do what I gotta do. So until the next video, y'all, stay safe and I'll see you when I see you. Bye!